Hey, Horse Center fans, Matt and I are back with another great show. Matt, we are just a week away from an absolutely fantastic weekend at Belmont Park. What's that mean for the show?
We certainly are, Brian. We're going to go through the entire field as it stands now. We're going to get the Brian Zipsy morning line, which is the best out there. We're going to talk about our pace projector, and we're going to talk about the superstars and division leaders that we can expect on the weekend undercards at Belmont Park.
Led by a fantastic edition of the Met Mile, Matt. We also give out our top long shots for the Belmont Stakes right here, right now, here on Horse Center. Watch it now. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the fantastic pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I'm trying to dry out from the rain up here. I hope the weather is getting out of its system this week, and we won't have it for Belmont Week.
That's right, Matt. We have at least a week before the big races start, 9 days until the Belmont Stakes, the final leg of the Triple Crown. And Matt, that's what we're going to focus on this show, the Belmont Stakes, the test of a champion, 1.5 miles, once around Big Sandy. And Matt, I'm gonna say this right out of the bat. It's not the best Belmont Stakes we've ever seen.
That's true. It from the last show, it seems like now we're down to 9 probables in the Belmont Stakes, and no, it's not the strongest field. Certainly, part of that comes from it's not a Triple Crown year, and we're trickling down to 6 or 7 that ran in the Derby and the Preakness. So that happens with the Belmont sometimes.
Yeah, and having said that, Matt, despite the Belmont Stakes being maybe slightly lackluster compared to other Belmonts, I still think it's a wonderful card of racing on Saturday and even spilling over into Friday and even a little bit on Thursday. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. All the good horses running in the other stakes races besides the Belmont Stakes. But Matt, let's jump into this Belmont Stakes. We'll start with our morning line. It really is a two-horse affair as far as who are going to be bet down to favoritism. And right now, Horse Center says Tacitus will be the slight favorite over the Preakness winner, War of Will. We have a Matt Tacitus 9-5, War of Will 2-1. There's enough wiggle room there where it could reverse, but I have a feeling that Belmont's Tacitus, who skipped the Preakness, will get bet quite a bit in the Belmont.
That seems to be the prevailing sentiment, and I always defer to your morning lines, Brian Zipsy, but it seems to be what a lot of other experts are saying. Also, Tacitus seems to have had Belmont Stakes written all over him all along as a son of Tapit, and the Tapits have done so well in the Belmont Stakes the past 3, 4, 5 years, the non-Triple Crown years, Brian. It's been all about the Tapits.
Absolutely. Tapit, really amazing. Maybe they like Belmont, but they certainly handled 1.5 miles of the Belmont Stakes, a pretty amazing record as a sire in the Belmont. And Tacitus is a son, of course, of Tapit, as you mentioned, Matt, but also Close Hatches, a high-quality champion mare of a few years ago. So Tacitus has the breeding to do pretty much anything, and he's been pointing for the Belmont a while. He looks like a horse who should be able to handle the distance. Like I said, he skipped the Preakness, coming out of a pretty good run in the Derby, a little bit trouble, got up for 4th, was placed 3rd because of the DQ. Tacitus seems like a horse, like you say, ready-made and tailor-made for the Belmont Stakes, Matt. Earlier this year, of course, he was a nice winner of the Tampa Bay Derby, very nice winner of the Wood Memorial, which could play out a little bit similar. It wasn't a gigantic field. There was some speed. He was able to kind of come from the middle of the pack ahead of a lot of the closers, make his move, and he looked good in the Wood before the Kentucky Derby beating Tax that day. So a lot to like with Tacitus, Matt, but there's a lot to like with War of Will. I think there are some people saying, well, he's not a 1.5 mile horse, but I look at that broodmare sire, Sadler's Wells, and I tell you what, you always tell me that horses on or near the lead, at least near the lead in the Belmont, do well. Why not War of Will?
Why not War of Will? What can you say at this point that's negative about War of Will? The negatives earlier in the spring have dropped by the wayside. He had impressive wins on the Derby Trail. He had the controversial trip in the Derby, and he was absolutely wonderful in the Preakness. He's the only horse from this Kentucky Derby crop, if you want to call it that will run in all three eggs. He's a warrior, Brian. He's a war front. What bad is there to say? I loved him in the spring. I guess I should be enthusiastically picking him to win the Belmont Stakes.
Well, you did say something, Matt, I think that we should look at from a handicapping perspective, and that's he's the only horse in all three legs, 3 tough legs, 5 weeks. Is that a negative? I think some people will look at it as a negative for War of Will. Of course, we used to see it more often back in the day, but maybe Tacitus has an advantage of 5 weeks between races while War of Will was coming back from that tough Kentucky Derby with the good Preakness win.
And, I give Mark Cassie credit. At this point, he said, hey, my horse is in top form. He's gone through all these big races. What is the point of going out and breezing, going 5 furlongs at this point? All that can do is take a little bit out of the horse. He's happy. He's healthy. He's winning. So he's just coming down the stretch in a sense of preparation for one more start. Cassie runners go to the track and race. So, but still, I agree with you, Brian. A lot of people in today's world are going to have that question in the back of their heads. Is War of Will going to be tired? And I think that is going to be a big contributor to the fact that Tacitus is likely to go off as a favorite.
Yeah, and we mentioned maybe another reason why he will go off the favorite if we're right, and that's Tappet, the sire. People are going to say, oh, Tappet's running the Belmont. And there you go. Those are certainly the top 2 horses in here, Matt. War of Will has already run 5 times this year, 3rd leg of the Triple Crown. Tacitus has only run 3 times this year, 2nd leg of the Triple Crown. So is there advantage to having a fresher horse? We'll see, but obviously the top 2 horses going into the Belmont are those 2. Looking back at our morning line, Matt, I think we have a pretty clear 3rd choice. And if you said this to me 5 weeks ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But Master Fence really did come from way back in the Derby and was rallying fast up the rail the entire stretch. People are going to see that Japanese rally in the Kentucky Derby. And I think he is for sure the 3rd betting choice in the Belmont, barring any more issues like he had yesterday in his workout.
Yeah, Brian, shake my head, scratch my head on this one. But I think I agree with you that Master Fencer is going to take a lot of action. And in my eyes, my friend, passing horses going 10 furlongs in the 20-field Kentucky Derby does not mean that you are now going to be able to pass the entire field going 1.5 miles and win the race. When we're talking about the odds, Brian, we're talking about the odds to win the race, not to come in 3rd. Do I think Master Fencer has a chance to get into the trifecta or the superfecta? Oh, absolutely. But I think he's going to be a huge underlay in the win position.
Yeah, well, I do have to like him a little bit more than I did going into the Kentucky Derby. And I watched his races in Japan, and he was really a consistent rallier. Yeah. He has no speed, but he rallies every time, and he did it again in the Kentucky Derby, I thought, against better competition. And, he was not far from those horses ahead of him in the Kentucky Derby. So I think, there's something to be said for your point, which I think is come from last in the Belmont, and it's not as easy to do it at 1.5 miles. You've already run farther. But on the other hand, these horses overseas are trained a little differently. And after the Derby, I certainly wouldn't throw him out. But I do agree with you. I think he's going to be a little bit lower, especially in win odds, than he probably should be in the Belmont. Going down the list, Matt, I think there's going to be a bunch that are considered after those three, and we listed Everfast fourth on the list just because I think people are going to look at that rally. He was a huge long shot in the Preakness, a little lower than I thought he'd be actually, but he was a long shot in the Preakness, and he really made up some ground on the inside. So I think people are going to look at that Preakness rally and give Everfast a look. So we got him at 10-1. We also have Intrepid Heart, Matt, who is really bred for the Belmont as well, at 10-1 for Todd Pletcher, a stumbling out of the gate third in the Peter Pan.
Yeah, and just let me go back for 1 second and add with Everfast that maybe it's a sign that the Dale Romans barn is waking up a little bit from a little bit of a slumber that it's been in lately. And Romans has never won the Belmont Stakes, but he has had 4 thirds in there. Do I consider Everfast a horse that's got a chance to get another third in there? Yeah, I do. But back to Intrepid Heart in here, another tappet, Brian, in here, and skipping the Preakness and going to the Belmont Stakes has been a thing that has been very successful to trainer Todd Pletcher. He was third in Peter Pan, as you mentioned. This one is a tappet. This one is a half to the talented horse from a few years ago, Commissioner. Lightly raced. I don't love that he's so lightly raced, but the other side of it is that I think I see room for improvement in this Todd Pletcher trainee that Brian, you put at 10-1. He would be my long shot pick in the Belmont.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about our top long shots a little bit more in the show here, Matt, but certainly Intrepid Heart with that breeding, lightly raced. He had some trouble last time. He's got a race over the track. He is an interesting long shot for sure. Another Pletcher horse, Matt, is Spinoff, who really disappointed in the Kentucky Derby. But before that, there was a lot to like from the son of Hardspun. Got him at 12-1 in here. He'll need to bounce back from that Kentucky Derby performance.
Yeah, and I guess people that like the horse can say, "Hey, he just never lifted a foot at all in the Derby." I'm going to draw a line through it. He did look good prior to that. So, definitely a Pletcher that skipping the Preakness, going to the Belmont, you got to take more than one look at.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think Spinoff has a little bit more form if you throw out the Derby than Intrepid Heart, at least a couple performances that are probably even better than anything Intrepid Heart's done yet. On the other hand, Intrepid Heart, I think I like the breeding for 12 furlongs. Not that Hardspun's bad, but on the other side, Gone West, Zapdig, a nice mare. I think that might be a little bit shorter, but certainly Spinoff is a horse that could bounce back. Sir Winston, Matt, ran a good race last time when he was picking up horses the entire stretch of the Peter Pan, ran right by Intrepid Heart for second. He is a consistent rallier coming from the same barn as the Preakness winner, War of Will, for trainer Mark Casse.
Yes, Sir Winston has been a consistent closer in there. Joel Rosario is opting to ride Sir Winston in there. And if you want a big race rider who is especially good with horses coming off the pace, then Joel Rosario is your man.
Yeah, and if he can do it again, because that Peter Pan was over the Belmont track, a different situation, yes. A short field, 1 1/8 miles, which is one turn at Belmont. But if he can run back to that race where he really did rally big, he's a horse that you need to throw in your exotics as well. The last horse I have kind of in this bunch at 10-12-1 is Tax, Matt. Tax really didn't do much in the Derby, probably had a little rough trip, a sloppy track, Before that, he was a good second behind Tacitus in the Wood Memorial. And another one, I'm looking at pedigree a little bit as I tend to do, maybe too much, but another one, 1.5 mile pedigree Arch out of a Giant's Causeway mare, 12-1 on Tax.
Yes, for sure. The pedigree for Tax is a positive, moves him up in there. We'll talk a little bit more about the pace projection in here. Danny Gargan is the trainer. Gargan, has never won a race of this magnitude.
Absolutely. And finally, Matt, we do have a long shot. I don't know if it'll be quite 30-1, but I think there should be a gap between him and the rest of the field. Evia was the horse that caused some trouble a few starts back in the Wood Memorial. Always Mining beat him pretty easy in Maryland before that. But last time he did wire the field in a short field in the Long Branch at Monmouth.
Yeah, and certainly that incident in the Wood Memorial was not the fault of the horse. It was his overeager rider from the far outside desiring to get quickly to the lead in there. But I think pretty clearly we've got a pace sitter in here in Evia.
Well, that's a good segue, Matt, to our pace projection for the Belmont. And I think there's a lot of horses in here in a 9-horse field that look like they want to be pretty close to that early lead. Certainly not expecting a fast pace in this 1.5-mile race, but with Evia, who I would kind of classify, unfortunately for his connection as his supporters, as cheaper early speed. I think he is the speed horse of the Belmont, Matt. But then you can talk about a bunch that should be close or even pressing Evia a little bit.
Yeah, that's for sure. In the stalker category, we've got, of course, War of Will, who in smaller fields has done such a good job of sitting right behind the pace and taking control of races, which is certainly what I would expect of that one in here. Intrepid Heart, spin off the two Todd Pletchers that we mentioned. That kind of running style suits Pletcher really well. And then there's Tax that could be in that category. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Tax is early in the race is sent up closer to Evia than War of Will, Intrepid Heart, and Spinoff. That's a very, very Danny Gargan kind of move to try to, I don't know, if steal a race is the right thing in here. And in some of Tax's earlier races this year, he was closer up to the pace. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that from Gargan in Tax.
Yeah, interesting. There's some inside information on the lesser-known trainer there from Matt Shipman. It wouldn't surprise me if any of the four are pretty darn close, but maybe you're right. Maybe Tax is the one that chases Evia the most early. Like you said, he did show speed earlier in his career. The Wood Memorial and probably the Derby, he never got a chance. But the Wood Memorial, he sat off a fast pace a little bit, which I kind of liked. And both Pletchers and obviously the Preakness winner will all be in touch of Evia early is what we're projecting here for the Belmont Stakes. Then the mid-pack list, Matt, consists of one horse. I think there might be the chance that Roman's horse Everfast moves into this mid-pack group. But Tacitus, as the projected favorite, I think can't let the others get too far out in front. So you might see another run like we saw in the Wood Memorial where Tacitus shows enough speed to stay in touch, but probably is behind the first 5 that we listed here. And it would surprise me, Matt, if Tacitus is too far out of it early. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that is definitely the tactical move in there. We've seen Tacitus run that kind of race on the Derby Trail a couple times already.
Yeah, and then we look at the closers, the last 3, Matt. Everfast really came from the clouds in the Preakness up the rail, as we said, although he has been closer to faster paces before, so there's a chance that he is hanging out more with Tacitus early. We'll see. After the Preakness, I would expect him to be around 7th early, because the bottom 2, Sir Winston and the Japanese horse, who we think will be the 3rd choice Master Fencer, really don't have much early speed at all.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with picking up another 3rd or possibly a 2nd from a horse like Everfast. He's only got 1 career win, but I think his earnings are just under $500,000 at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't run every time, but he's thrown in a couple good ones, including earlier at Gulfstream Park. Dale Romans, Everfast. Matt mentioned that he's had a pretty good history in the Belmont Stakes, Dale Roman. So that's Everfast, the horse who could be the fourth choice in this year's Belmont. All right, Matt, that's our morning line odds, our pace projection. Let's just talk a little bit about our top long shot. We're gonna do that this week before next week we really get into our bets and who we like best. But we each have a long shot that we like and we want to talk about a little bit. I'm gonna let you go first with your top long shot of these 9 in the Belmont Stakes.
Sure, Brian. I'm going to go with Intrepid Heart, and I'm going to do that because I'm going to take the lightly raced past performances, only 3 starts, and say, hey, I think this horse has a chance of getting better. There's quality in his pedigree. He's got the Tappet angle going for him. He's got the not running in the Preakness and moving to the Belmont angle going for him. He's in the Peter Pan. The winners of the Belmont Stakes recently have come from either the Derby, the Preakness, or the Peter Pan. So I'm going to go with Intrepid Heart, and I think we'll get 10-1.
Yeah, I can't blame you there, Matt. He's certainly one that I thought of as a real long shot possibility in here. I did go another way, and I think I'm going to get a little bit better odds. My top long shot in the Belmont is Tax, who I could see be ahead of only Joe Evia on the odds board. It's possible he's the 8th choice, and maybe 18-1 or something in here off his tough Derby run. A lot of reasons I like him. I'm with you on the pedigree. I think we both picked horses bred for 1.5 miles. Intrepid Heart for you, Tax for me. Again, Arch on one side, Giants Causeway on the other. That's 1.5 miles for me. I like the tactical speed. You're saying he's going to go out a little bit. I liked what I saw in the Wood Memorial, where at least he was able to relax early and then make a move. Wasn't quite as strong as Tacitus, and he's going to have to deal with that again in the Belmont. But I like the fact that he has that move after staying pretty close to the pace. He's a big physical horse. I said this last winter that he's just a horse that really looks the part. And what does that mean? Well, at Belmont Park is kind of a more they call it Big Sandy, the big turns. I like big, strong horses at Belmont Park. So this might be a track that he really takes to. Like I said, I think he's going to be one of the longest shots in the Derby, and the fact that he was freshened, just like several others in here, I think is not a bad thing at all. So I'm looking for Tax to get into the exotics at least at 15-1 or more. So he will be my top long shot. Matt, we've been talking about this Belmont Stakes, which we admittedly said is not the greatest race in the world as far as Belmont Stakes goes, Matt, but this Met Mile that we're looking at, it just gets better by the day, Matt. And, we've seen some great horses in the Met Mile over the years. Maybe we're lacking a great horse in the Met Mile, but we've got 5, 6, 7 really nice horses in the Met Mile, and probably the favorite is McKinsey.
I would think, Brian, that McKinsey, Bob Baffert, that means you're going to be a favorite when you're a horse like McKinsey, who is very popular. But not going to be a big field, Brian, but it's got quality from top to bottom. It's McKinsey, and then there's Matoli in here for Steve Asmussen, who last race at Churchill Downs added an extra furlong, added the next furlong onto his resume, and boy, did he do it. It looks like the mile is not going to be any problem, and Asmussen knows how to get them ready for this. I like Matoli in there a lot, but you got Firenze Fire in there. You got Thunder Road coming to North America a little earlier than I thought, off that big win in Dubai. Coalfront for Todd Pletcher, who has some big races in these one-turn miles. Promises Fulfilled for Dale Romans. Pavel, who is maybe getting things together for Doug O'Neill. Quality field.
Yeah, the longest shots on the board, Matt. Promises Fulfilled and Pavel are grade 1 horses. So yeah, this is a nice field. Matoli, we need to talk about Matoli. McKinsey I think if you asked 100 turf riders right now who's the best older dirt horse in the country, more than any other horse, I think the answer would be McKinsey. I'm not sure, but he's right up there. The Son of Street Sense has run enough really good races to. It's interesting to see him one turn at a mile, but Mike Smith, Bob Baffert, yeah, he's probably going to be the favorite. But he's beatable in here, as is Matoli, Matt. He's never been a mile, and that Churchill Downs, like you mentioned, at 7 furlongs was so good. But a lot of fast horses in here, stretching out to a mile against a good mix, and that's what makes this Met Mile so fun too, Matt. Is the really top sprinters going against the really top 2-turn horses at kind of the in between the 1-turn mile. That's fun for me. Thunder Snow, he's won 2 straight Dubai World Cups. He's run well at Belmont before. So he's coming over for the Met, which just adds to it. He's got a lot of tactical speed as well. Coalfront, I'm not going to bet Coalfront in here, but you look at those races at Oaklawn Park and then Dubai. Obviously a talented horse, and obviously a horse who likes a mile. You know who I'm going to bet, Matt?
Yeah, I do.
Tell me.
Frenzy Fire.
You know me too well. I have Frenzy Fire listed as the 5th choice in here, Matt, and I tell you what, I don't know if he's good enough to win this race. Maybe he's not, but I think he's awfully good. And there's something about horses for courses, Matt Schiffman, and Frenzy Fire just loves Belmont Park. And if he can sit off Promises Fulfilled and Matoli just a little bit and make that first move, it's going to be tough with McKinsey and Thunder Snow breathing down his neck. But I think Frenzy Fire, a horse for a course who loves Belmont Park, is going to run a big race. 5th choice, maybe I get 8-10-1, Matt. He's awfully good to be 8-10-1 in any race. But I'll take my chances at Belmont Park with Frenzy Fire in the Met Mile. But what a race.
Hey, and I must say, you talked about horses for courses. I'm going to mention races for handicappers. I can't tell you how many times HorseCenter fans I have sat next to Mr. Zipsy at Belmont Park when he's got his money down on a horse in the Met Mile and they come flying and win the big race. I'm still waiting for Brian to buy me a new car off of those victories.
Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Schiffman. That's the Met Mile, but how about some of these other, at least horses running over this time? Matt, I think on your NTRA poll, your latest or your last few, you have number 1, Bricks and Mortar, and he's coming back after a big win on Derby Day. He'll be running on Belmont Day.
Yeah, we don't have any other choice but to make Bricks and Mortar the number 1 horse. He's coming back in the Manhattan. I don't know. He looks like he's just going to be facing a barn of his stablemates in there, where there are 4 Chad Browns listed as probable for the Manhattan, but he beat a pretty nice field last time down in Kentucky when he was victorious again. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Bricks and Mortar.
Without a doubt, he's been the best turf horse in America this year, and different distances. So 1.25 miles at Belmont Park might be something slightly new for him, but it's hard to argue with what Bricks and Mortar has accomplished for trainer Chad Brown this year, now as a 5-year-old. Matt, we're just still at the tip of the iceberg. How about the Acorn? We got Serengeti Empress, the speedy Tom Amos trains Serengeti Empress, making her first start since the Kentucky Oaks. She ran them off their feet in the Kentucky Oaks. She became the top 3-year-old filly in the country in the Kentucky Oaks. But will we see the good Serengeti Empress in Saturday's Acorn?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, and you mentioned before that, this list of undercard races, we're just rattling off a list of division leaders as we go down. I don't know. We'll see. Serengeti Empress has been a little bit of an in and outer. When she's unbeatable. When she's not, she doesn't contend. But I think I like her in here. I like the 1-turn mile. Should fit really well for her running style. Tom Amos has just done a wonderful job taking care of this horse.
Yeah, 2 over 3 races are huge this year, Matt. The other ones she bled pretty badly. it would be nice to see Serengeti Empress string together big Grade 1 winning performances. On the other hand, maybe it's worth taking a look. I want to look at this Acorn field a little bit more to see if there's some real speed to go with her. But I don't see a lot of big names yet lining up to face her in the Acorn. So we'll see. I will say, though, her only other trip to New York, which was Saratoga, not Belmont, she did fail that time. So it'll be interesting to see what she does in the Acorn. Midnight Bassoon, Matt, you said it about bricks and mortar. We could say it about Midnight Bassoon, maybe to a little bit lesser extent, but Midnight Bassoon is perfect. 3 graded stakes wins this year. She's the leader of her division, at least till Monomoy Girl comes back. Midnight Bassoon will have a test in the Ogden Phipps.
Yes, that absolutely for sure. She is clearly the division leader until we get to see Monomoy Girl, which I hope is sooner than later. Another one from the loaded Steve Asmussen barn.
Yeah, and Come Dancing, New York filly, New York mare, has been rolling in New York lately. So that'll be an interesting test for Midnight Bassoon in the Ogden Phipps. Matt, there's Rushing Fall coming back in the Justic game. There's World of Trouble, Dirt Turf, did it on turf, Kentucky Derby weekend. He'll be back in the Jaipur.
Back on the turf here, and in my eyes, as good as World of Trouble was winning the on the dirt at Aqueduct earlier in the year. Turf is his best surface, but he's going to face a really tough veteran turf horse in Disco Partner from Christophe Clement, and that one loves Belmont Park, but I think World of Trouble is a super talent.
Another horse for course at Belmont Park, Disco Partner on the Belmont turf. That's right, World of Trouble. There's a bunch of good turf sprinters in that Jaipur, so that'll be interesting for World of Trouble. Catalina Cruiser, Matt, we haven't seen Catalina Cruiser since he disappointed in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. We're going to see him come back in the True North.
Yeah. So, like you said, Brian, there's a long list of interesting quality horses. Some of them coming back to make debuts, like Catalina Cruiser, a newspaper record coming back after she got beat by Concrete Rose. Exciting.
The list goes on. Yeah, we want to see Newspaper Record come back. It looks like that race is Thursday next week, Matt. That's the wonder again. So an early look to see if Newspaper Record can regain that phenomenal form she showed on the turf as a 2-year-old filly. The Bed of Roses has some of the top older female sprinters in the country, Matt. Shalon and Marley's Freedom, to name a couple. And then Homer Reek. If you haven't heard of Homer Reek, folks, she was a top filly in France on the grass, and she came over with a really nice run in the Beaugay. She'll be coming back in the New York Handicap, stretching out a little bit in that one, Matt.
Gee, Brian, let me guess. Could she be from the Chad Brown barn?
Yeah, you got it. and that was an impressive debut, Matt. And Homer Reek, I think, could challenge horses like Sister Charlie and Rushing Fall and Vasilika as the top turf filly in the country this year. So, as you can tell, folks, this card, we're going to talk more about it again next week, but this card is absolutely loaded underneath the Belmont Stakes, around the Belmont Stakes, starting on Thursday evening. And Matt and I are most excited to jump into this, not just the Belmont, but all of these great horses and good races around the Belmont. Matt, let me get a parting shot from you. And remember, next week, we're going to talk wagers on the Belmont Stakes.
Hey, folks, there may not be a Triple Crown on the line here, but the positive of that is that you can come out to Belmont Park, and Brian and I just talked about the amazing horses who will be running, and you're not going to have a crowd of 90,000 in there. It's going to be a much more reasonable, I say maybe about 50, 60,000, which sounds like a lot, but in the big Belmont Park plant, 50, 60,000 doesn't seem nearly as many as on a Triple Crown day. So you can come out and be comfortable. The lines at the windows won't be as long, and at the food, and just see racing that's second to none, maybe only to a Breeders' Cup day.
Well said, Matt. Absolutely. Other than Breeders' Cup days, Belmont Stakes Day especially, there is no finer racing in the United States. So good point by Matt. A little less of a crowd because there's no Triple Crown, but great horses up and down that program. Matt, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, the best producer out there. And then we got to thank Derby Wars. I guess they're the best contest site out there, Matt, too. They're our great sponsor. Folks, we want to thank you for tuning in all the time here to HorseCenter. We sure do appreciate it. Hey, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, right here on the Horse Racing Nation channel, please do so. What else, Matt? What am I forgetting?
I don't know. You rattled off an awful lot of superlatives there, and for good reason.
That's right. And we were talking about World of Trouble as the list of all-stars for Belmont Stakes weekend. World of Trouble was flattered by his Carter win when Vino Rosso went out to California, Matt, and defeated Giftbox 1.25 miles in the Gold Cup. Let's leave this HorseCenter by watching the Gold Cup, Vino Rosso, and Giftbox throw down in the stretch at Santa Anita Park.
And they're off in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Higher Power comes out running, so does Blitzkrieg, who wants to lead and takes it. Mongolian Groom is just behind them, and Core Beliefs also up close. Giftbox in a little bit tight between rivals. Vino Rosso extreme outside. The distant early trailer is Lone Sailor. A contested battle by the stands the first time. Blitzkrieg by a head to Giftbox. Core Beliefs 3 wide. Vino Rosso has to go 4 wide into the turn. Higher Power has dropped off the pace now. He's 4 lengths off the lead. Another 4 to Mongolian Groom, and Lone Sailor has 10 to make up. Around the clubhouse turn they go, chasing Blitzkrieg, who leads it by about a length. Giftbox keeps him in his sights second, and Core Belief still 3 wide, with Vino Rosso outside of him. Higher Power is 5th, 6 lengths off the leader. Another 2.5 back to Mongolian Groom, who inches a little closer, and Lone Sailor's at the back. Heading to the half-mile pole in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Blitzkrieg is the leader by a length. Giftbox now inching closer, the margin down to a half. Vino Rosso is a 1.5 lengths off the lead and has to pick it up a touch as Mongolian Groom takes 4th. Core Beliefs losing some ground, passed by Higher Power, and 4 more to Lone Sailor. Giftbox makes his move now, takes the lead. Vino Rosso coming after him. These two squaring off with Blitzkrieg dropping back in 3rd. Then it's Mongolian Groom and Higher Power, Core Beliefs, Lone Sailor. Vino Rosso puts his neck in front at the top of the stretch. Giftbox will have to dig deep to keep off Vino Rosso, who comes to the 8th pole with the lead by a neck. Giftbox is back to 2nd. Then comes Higher Power in 3rd. They're coming to the 16th pole, and Vino Rosso edging away from Giftbox. He's coming into his own, and Vino Rosso at age 4 goes on to win the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Second to Giftbox. Lone Sailor came from the clouds.